And boy, what a week. I mean, it's, okay, here's the bottom line. The FBI, and you know, everybody's heard this by now. The FBI is back in 2016, before the election even had happened. People in the FBI are looking around going, what's going on here with Donald Trump? It sure looks like this guy is dancing to the tune of Russia. Now, there's a couple of questions that I think are worth asking here, and a couple of issues that are worth bringing out. And, you know, I would love to hear your opinion on this too. A lot of this is just, frankly, opinion right now. But to what extent could it be that Donald Trump's embrace of Vladimir Putin and Russian perspectives and Russian historical narratives, you know, oh, the Russians went into Afghanistan, for example, because terrorists were coming out of Afghanistan, not because of the Brzezinski doctrine. No, it wasn't Brzezinski. It was whoever the Russian leader was at the time. But in any case, is it that Trump is just following his economic interests? That he thinks that if he does a deal, if he cuts a deal, you know, if he behaves in a way that keeps Russia very, very happy, that the consequence of behaving that way will be that Russia then, in turn, will say to him, cool, you know, you want to have a Trump Tower in Moscow? We're on it. You know, I mean, in other words, is this entirely about that and about keeping the spigot open? The millions of dollars that have come from Russia via the NRA for Republican candidates, including a number of Republican senators, and of course all the money that you know, is going to the Republic, and back channel help, right? You know, little work from the Internet Research Agency and all that kind of stuff. Is it that Trump is just protecting his own political and economic interests? Or is it that he's actually, in other words, that would make him, I suppose, the unwitting dupe of Russians because he's doing it because he wants the money? Or is there something very different here? I mean, is it possible that the President of the United States actually has a higher loyalty to a foreign country than to the United States? And if that's the context, if that's the case, is it that his loyalty to Russia is part of a larger loyalty to other autocrats and oligarchs as opposed to a loyalty to democracy? And could that flow out of his worldview of being, you know, a billionaire oligarch? He loves Duterte, he loves Sisi in Egypt, Duterte in the Philippines, Erdogan in Turkey. Of course, he's got a Trump hotel in Turkey. I mean, all these countries with autocratic leaders, North Korea, Kim Jong-un, President Xi of China, all these autocrats, Trump seems to embrace. So could it be that if your first commitment is to capitalism and the profit motive, rather than your first commitment being to small d democracy and a small r republic, could it be that that essentially requires you to support these oligarchs? I mean, this is like a really consequential question. And then if that's the case, I mean, if it's possible that what Donald Trump is really all about is destabilizing the United States, either because, hey, you know, Putin wants it and so he's going to do it because Putin's got something on him, or if he's trying to destabilize the United States, not because he's dancing to the tune of Russia or Putin or anybody else, but because he shares the opinion, along with other autocratic leaders around the world. Like I said, you know, Duterte, Erdogan, Viktor Orban in Hungary, what's his name, the guy who's running Poland, the leader of the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland party, the new neo-Nazi right party in Germany, the Marine Le Pen group in France. I mean, you find this all over the world, that there are these autocrats, these oligarchs, who are fundamentally hostile to democracy because democracy makes it harder for them to basically own politicians. And owning politicians is the name of the game. I mean, we know now Len Blavatnik, this is this U.S.-UK citizen who is a Ukrainian-born billionaire, buddies with the Russians. Him and his organizations passed along $3.5 million to Mitch McConnell. This is presumably money coming out of Russia, this calamari posting over Democratic Underground over the weekend on Friday. Then old Mitch boy, he writes, is bought and paid for. Mitch McConnell, $3.5 million through this guy. Lindsey Graham, $800,000. Marco Rubio, $1.5 million. John Kasich, $250,000. Scott Walker, $1.1 million. You know, is it that they're basically owned? I mean, is that what's going on? Is, for that matter, I mean, you know, which raises the really interesting question, is Mitch McConnell owned, in this case, not necessarily by the Russians, although they donated apparently $3.5 million to his campaign, or, you know, the two $25 million contributions from Shelley Adelson to McConnell's Senate Leadership Fund? Is it that, or is it that Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, her father is like this major Taiwanese shipping magnate who makes his money with China, with international trade. And, you know, when he married Elaine Chao, he went from being a poor politician to being a multi-millionaire. And suddenly her family started pouring money into his political campaigns and his career. The NRA last year, $54 million that they spent. And then this whole thing with Elaine Chao is getting very, very interesting. The Bank of China extends a $37 million loan to the Chao family shipping company, Foremost. In May of 2016, Elaine's sister, Angela Chao, was elected to the board of directors of the Bank of China, which now partners with Russia's VTB Bank. That's the bank that's under sanctions that Donald Trump was trying to get the sanctions lifted because that was the bank that was going to fund his Trump Tower Russia. So not only McConnell has links to China via the Chao connection, but also the Chao's family's interlinks with Russia. And thus, we see that Mitch McConnell has blocked every piece of legislation trying to protect the special counsel's investigation. He must be terrified of being caught. And that probably explains why back in 2016, when President Obama went to Mitch McConnell and said, "You're the leader of the Senate. It looks like the Russians are messing with the election. We need to do something about this." You know, Mitch McConnell basically said no. Which raises an even larger question. Right now, the one guy who is keeping the Senate shut down, keeping the government shut down, is Mitch McConnell. If Mitch McConnell would allow a vote on opening the government in the Senate, it would pass, and it would pass with a veto-proof majority. And that vote has already been had in the House. And if it was vetoed, the veto would be overturned. So the one guy who could open the government tomorrow morning, this afternoon, is Mitch McConnell. And he's refusing to do it, which raises this really bizarre question. And I want you to think seriously about this question, because just even asking this question is a frightening thing. Is it possible that the government shutdown itself, which we know basically was completely unnecessary? Trump was ready to sign the legislation that just again passed the House. It passed the Senate unanimously on December 19th of last year. Trump was ready to sign that legislation that would have kept the government open and extended the negotiations and would have given him $1.2 billion for his damn wall. Trump was ready to go along with that, and then the next day he says no. Why? The common story is that he said no because Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Rush Limbaugh told him to say no. But who told them to say no? Is this, is this part of a campaign to destroy democracy in the United States? Is that what Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell are doing? And if so, are they doing it at the behest of Vladimir Putin? Or are they doing it at the behest of the fossil fuel billionaires, the Kochs or the Adelsons? He's a gambling billionaire, or Robert Mercer. I mean, why are these guys trying to kneecap us? Is it possible that the government shutdown itself is part of a broader conspiracy to bring America to her knees, to take this country down, to finally destroy our faith in our own government, the faith that Ronald Reagan started attacking when he was inaugurated in 1981, and in that first inaugural address said, the government is not the solution to your problem, the government is the problem. That was the beginning. When Reagan came into office and said that, the day before he said that, well over 70–80% of Americans believed that government could solve problems. Now it's around 16%. This has been a relentless campaign for 50 years by Republicans and billionaire oligarchs to cause us to think that the government can never do anything right. Why? Because the government is the major impediment to billionaires polluting the air, ripping off their employees, cutting their own taxes by owning politicians. The government's the only thing that can stop that. So of course the billionaires want to take out the government. So is this a Putin campaign? Is this an oligarch campaign? Is it both? Is it neither? Is the government shutdown that Donald Trump basically willed into being overnight, and that Mitch McConnell has completely gone along with throughout the entire process, are Obama, Pence, and McConnell being told to do this by Russians or somebody else? Are they being told to do it by the billionaire oligarchs who are libertarians and don't believe that the government should even be running anyway outside of having an army? Could that be it? I mean, is the end game here to prove to Americans, oh, we don't need no stinking government. Look at it. It ran for a whole month with no side effects without government. I mean, what is the end game here? What are these guys trying to prove? How much damage do they want to accomplish? How much damage do they want to inflict on this nation before they can dust their hands off and say, mission accomplished?